And welcome back live. I'm delighted to have the panel with you now, in addition to a special guest off the agenda, which is Mr. Stefan Kohler, Chief Operating Officer at EEX. Stefan, great to have you live. And actually, we've had lots of questions coming through. Keep them coming. We're going to work through them in this session. But Stefan, to start with you, welcome. And as someone who's been in this game for quite a long period of time now, do you see the Japanese power market following the same evolutionary trail as the EU has experienced since the end of the 90s?
Look, thank you very much for the question. May I first thank the panelists for their very interesting discussion. And let me briefly explain why I found this discussion being so interesting, and I think that will answer your question. What I heard is that although the Japanese power market is very specific in its setup, so we talked about zones and we talked about the particular fuel mix, it appears to me that the challenge that market participants are facing is a well-known one. And the ingredients of the answer to that question or challenge seems to be well-known and can be reused. And the elements that I heard are the following. Number one, a functioning physical market side by side with a liquid futures market. Exchange trading means pre and post-trade anonymity. It means day-to-day risk management, and it means collateralization towards one central counterpart. So that's the product perspective, standardized products that are well established along the curve from the short end to the long end. The second dimension that I heard is the distribution network, the member view of it. Now, EEX brings to the table a huge distribution network where we combine a lot of elements, local elements, Japanese market participants, global market participants, physical players, financial players. All these various business setups behind those players are the basis for a functioning risk transfer process. And the third element from my point of view is all this expertise, all those experts, all these service providers that have specialized on this business, be it trading solutions, brokerage solutions, clearing services, risk management services, IT services, market data offerings, just to name a few. I think with all these expertise, experience, and enthusiasm that we have brought together, we are very well set to face that challenge that we were talking about. To me, it's actually not a question anymore, and I think I speak on behalf of all of us. If it's only the question when we have all that accomplished. Last comment from my side. Let's be fair with each other. The German market may serve as a blueprint here, but the structure in the German and European market as we know it today did not come overnight. It took a decade. My personal comment and my personal view on the Japan power market is as follows. Looking back at the last 12 months and what has been accomplished, and I can only repeat, with all the expertise, experience, and enthusiasm that we brought together, I'm 100% convinced no way it will take a decade. As long as we stand together and help each other, we will be way quicker. Thank you.
Thank you, Stefan. I want to hold you there for one moment longer. We've got a question from Koichiro Okuda. Thank you, Koichiro, and I believe that is from Tohoku Energy. And the question is, recently CME and ICE are planned for launching Japanese power futures. How is EEX prepared to compete to be the dominant futures exchange in Japan? And Stefan, that might be one for you or Stefan Riediger as well.
Yeah, happy to take the question. Thanks for the question. EEX operates in a competitive environment ever since. And we EEX people, the EEX family, we like competition as it keeps us on our toes. And that is good for the customer. Customer is the key word here. Ultimately, it's the decision of the customer which offer he or she wants to accept, right? Now, speaking on behalf of an exchange that is for 4 consecutive years the biggest power exchange on this globe, I think it's fair to state the closeness to our customers and the customer relationships that we do have, the relationships that we have to other market participants like service providers and partners will serve as basis for any further step that we are taking, not only, but as well as far as Japan Power is concerned.
Thank you, Stefan. Izumi-san, the question from Tohoku, what would your response to that be? What are your thoughts and how are you seeing the market?
This market, you're talking about market, power market itself, or?
Correct, yes.
Okay, yeah, it's more and more, as I said in the panel, on more than 600, 700 retailers in the market, and we have a pretty big power market. So the hedge needs for power market is pretty high. That's my understanding, and I'm pretty optimistic to see more volatility and more liquidity would come together to the market. So I'm pretty optimistic at the moment. Yeah.
Fantastic. And then James, a question from Paula Arrigo, which is, are traders mainly local and clearinghouses, or are you seeing, or anyone else in the panel for that matter, seeing global power players starting to trade as well?
Well, we're seeing a great mix of everyone, really. You know, we have participants across the globe, all the way from, you know, obviously local, but European-based, US-based, and wider Asia-based, Asia-Pacific. So it really is a United Colours of Benetton market. You know, it really is quite a diverse market, more than any power market that I've seen, actually.
Thank you. And then if we talk about accessibility of the pricing to the end user, in terms of the volatility we're seeing, what does this mean to Japanese business consumers? Maybe Izumi, that's a question to you.
Okay. Yes, as we all saw, yeah, price volatility and was extremely, and because it traded up to 250 yen, and tomorrow market price is back to 80 yen, so it's totally unbelievably volatile market. However, as for the consumers, it's the damage is pretty limited so far, and some of the retailers offering, you know, products price linked to JPX. So these kinds of consumers would have to pay more, you know, power price. However, the percentage of such contract is very limited. I would say only less than 0.1%. So the damage to the consumers are very limited at this stage. That's my understanding.
Thank you, Izumi. So we've had a question come through from Emil Gulmi. Apologies if I pronounced that wrong, Emil, but the question I think is excellent, and CME will be offering Japan Power as well. Unlike EEX, block trades can be submitted to CME clearing via Clearport during Asian hours. Do you have any comments to that question? Perhaps Stefan Riediger, this could be one for you.
Yeah, happy to take that, Luke. And my answer would be very easy. Yeah? So, I mean, talking about building a market together, I think we have already shown that we are able to build a market also for the Japanese market, for Japan Power, with the setup that we have in place already. But of course, we want to build that further together with you. Yeah, so together with our clients and together with our clearing banks, we will continue to expand that business. And are we there yet? No, we aren't. But certainly, we are here to stay. And here to stay in Japan means continue to expand our services. So of course, we will work together with the industry in order to make our services and our processes better as we go ahead. But looking at the past 12 months at what we've achieved together so far, I would say we have proven as an industry that we can build this together.
Thank you, Stefan. I want to take just a moment just to the audience to say, to the Japanese speaking parts of the audience, if you want to submit a question in Japanese, we are able to translate that and put it to the panel. So please do not be shy. A question just in to the panel, and I'll let anybody take this one, is from Michael Conyer. And does the panel think the recent volatility will lead to increased interest and development of an options market? Who wants to go first on that?
Well, I can weigh in on that one a little bit, and obviously, not speaking on behalf of the exchange in terms of how easy that is, but futures and options are a standard package in most power markets, all of them, as far as I'm concerned. But you need to develop the underlying liquidity in the futures contract for that to work properly. So that's a process, but I would fully expect options to play a huge part in the market going forward.
Yeah, I mean, if I could add to that, I fully echo what James says, and it's about an evolution of the market, right? I mean, we are at a stage where we have now a liquid curve for baseload, peak load, Tokyo and Kansai from weeks up to calendar years, yeah? And I think that's an achievement in itself, because we as an industry, we have come together to say, okay, that's the standard futures product that we want to trade. Is that the end of the story? No, it's not, because as James says, there is an evolution, and we will stick our heads together, yeah, with the traders, with the brokers, with the clearing banks. What's the next step? I mean, there are different, wishes that are already on the table. Yeah, some people say, given the volatility that we have seen, we need to expand also into short-term contracts. Others say options could be an interesting one. You see, there's appetite for more, and I think that's an important signal that gives me at least confidence that we will see this market growing and flourishing as we move forward.
Thank you. We've got time for a couple more questions. And one has come through, which is around volatility. We know right now it's almost unprecedented, but is the Japanese power market highly volatile, COVID aside? And then following that, is it a Japanese market phenomenon, or is it more of a regional piece? Does anyone want to try and answer that question? And that's from Paula Ariga again.
Filling a vacuum. If you look at the prices over, say, the last 10 years and look at all the historic data that's available for JPX, yeah, it is pretty volatile in terms of year on year and season on season as well. Is it more volatile than other markets? I'd say, without putting a number on it, it's fairly similar to the volatility you expect to see through Europe, for example. But it's not unexpected with quite a big shift in generation mix and things like that these prices and the underlying is going to move quite a lot. And it's a bit of it is a progression. But certainly, setting aside things like COVID and also, of course, the volatility we've seen over January, it is a relatively volatile market as compared to other comparative markets overseas.
Yeah, I think that's definitely what we've seen in Europe in terms of, as the markets, but the generation mix has changed. The short-term markets have become very volatile, and you could see that as the mix changes in Japan, you'll see that volatility as well in Japan as you see in Europe on the short term.
Brilliant. Thank you, Richard. Thank you, James. A couple of questions then as I bring this to a close, which is obviously there's lessons learned from launching a power derivatives market in Asia, but maybe Stefan Riediger, it'd be useful with some of the questions coming through if you could just give a brief explanation to how a Japanese PPS can access EEX markets. Who do they speak with? What's the process? And then do we have to be members of the exchange to trade on EEX? What does that look like?
Yeah, I mean, look, I mean, the EEX market is a wholesale market. Yeah? Wholesale market means that not all of these 600 retail or PPS companies in Japan might access the exchange directly. So what we are seeing is a model which James also touched upon earlier, and also Bob Takai mentioned in his introductory speech. We are seeing a network of international banks, also banks with strong physical presence in Japan, and I'm grateful to have also Ken from SocGen here on this panel. So these banks provide access to the exchange and to the clearinghouse. Yeah, so a retail client could go to any bank. I mean, we also have ABN as a partner today here, and they will give them a credit account and a bank account and an exchange account in order to clear contracts with us. Alternatively, I mean, they could also approach what we call aggregators or intermediaries. Yeah, so there are utility firms that provide market access. Yeah, and maybe that's something that Izumi-san can also touch upon. Yeah, so there's a network of exchange members, but what is important is behind these exchange members sits a large number, a variety of clients in a second layer or third layer.
Thank you, Stefan. Ken, do you have any comments on that as well, obviously coming from the Société Générale side of this, and how you're sort of bringing it to the table?
Yes, unfortunately, I could not travel to Japan more than 1 year, but I'm really keen to meet the potential client in Japan. And of course, this is quite a new product in this industry. So I believe a lot of people would like to know how they can open the clearing account, and what is a clear account, how difficult to manage a clearing account. So as soon as I'm able to go to Japan, then I will go more often to Japan and meet a client in person, and want to clarify how the clearing is. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Ken. And at this point, I realise we are running slightly over time. There's lots of questions coming through, and I think this is really, really powerful. We've got a good group here, and this conversation does not stop now. Reach out to us, to EEX, to James, to Richard, to Ken, Izumi, and of course, Hiroshi, who was quite brilliant moderating the session earlier. So we're going to thank the panel and stop there and move on to the next session, which is all around Asian ambition in terms of the status quo and what will it look like. So without further ado, I'm going to pass on to Michael Mervyn-Jones, who is our moderator for the next session. Thank you.